Hey, it's Soul with another video, and today I wanted to talk about the new build that has just appeared for Legion 732, and, well, a couple interesting things that we're seeing with this whole Pantheon trinket set that we were seeing in previous builds. When we first looked at these trinkets, we saw it as a very interesting set, where put together, these 6 trinkets combined would make really crazy things happen, and I talked about that in a previous segment of, well, some other video that I did. Since then, things have changed up quite a bit, and I want to share some of these findings with you today. Before I go further, let me remind you that this is all PTR related stuff, and absolutely everything that I'm talking about, from the values to the names of things, might change at a moment's notice, or at the drop of a hat in a Q&A maybe. First off is this item, Pantheon's Blessing. This is an item that apparently dropped from the last boss of the Antorus raid. What you do with it is apply it to your Argus trinket, and there's a trinket for each kind of role plus 1. So this brings me back to the Warlords Draenor days when we had that special item that dropped off of Archimonde, the last boss in the Hellfire Citadel raid, where eventually everyone who completed at least the everyone who completed the Archimonde fight, they would get this item and they would apply this small incremental upgrade to their ring. This made it so that after a certain amount of time, after a certain amount of work was done by each player, they all had a super special snazzy ring that had a very high item level value on it. And while this might not be a huge deal, here's something that I'm noticing from it. There are, of course, multiple versions of these trinkets that you can get, either from different raid difficulties, or if they happen to Warforge or Titanforge. So that at least translates to me that there's going to be, like, at least a limited variance as to how powerful these trinkets are going to be depending on the player. Whether you're a mythic raider or if you are a normal mode raider, you're probably going to have to take a little bit longer to fully power up your trinket than the mythic raider or the really lucky person. Taking that even further, we can probably predict that the Raid Finder version of this raid is going to be released in a similar schedule that other raids have been released previously. So it's going to be at least a month until the bleeding edge casuals will be jumping into Raid Finder and picking up this trinket. And for all we know, just like with Archimonde in Hellfire Citadel, you might have to do normal mode raiding in order to get this sort of item. Actually, let me walk that back just a little bit. You were able to buy it for like Valor points, but it's not quite the same thing. For the most part, it's going to be just like with Hellfire Citadel. People that just do LFR related activities, they're just going to have to wait a while. And I'll let you react the way you want. So my first thought is that it's cool. It's kind of cool. I mean, not a big deal for me as an average raider, as an average heroic raider. This isn't a big deal. I do like having this sort of natural nerf to content, which is probably what some blue poster is going to say with explaining these sorts of upgrades. At the same time, though, I think of things like artifact power and whatnot, as well as Titan forging, that is also in itself another slow system to nerf content. And I think, just like with how we have these layering of systems, is this like a bit too much? I don't know. This did bring up a concern about one of the 6 trinkets, Aman'Thul's Vision. When I first saw this, I thought to myself, well, shoot, there are this many trinkets, but then there's that one trinket that everyone can use, and it's this one, this Aman'Thul's Vision. Wouldn't people be kind of screwed because some of these people might have 2 of these trinkets and they have to decide whether or not they're going to bump up one trinket or another? That would be pretty messed up. Fortunately though, Blizzard did think of this and they turned Aman'Thul's Vision into a legendary. This means it'll already have an item level of 1000, but there's more. According to the data that we're seeing, even though this trinket is now a legendary item, it doesn't count towards the limit of how many we can equip. Ooh. So this at least tells me that players aren't going to feel entirely screwed. On top of that, I guess I was a bit premature with my ooh, this trinket will still drop from the last boss of Antorus. In other words, it's a normal drop, it has a normal drop rate, and part of me is wondering just how it is that this is going to be dropped. The information that we have at least tells us that it's not going to be entirely random, like we're not going to get it from a world quest box. In fact, I wonder if this is going to be one of those drops that it's kind of like a personal drop, like you can't exactly pass it around, it's always going to go to someone, but it's always going to go to at least like 1 or 2 people. Or it just might have the normal behavior of a drop, but it's going to have a 100% chance. The reason why I'm thinking about it at all is because this is the 6th trinket. Because this is the extra trinket that doesn't exactly apply and doesn't have a role specific kind of thing, in a way it might be a bit less desirable for pretty much any class. Here's a bit of theory crafting here. And let me at least explain the buff behind these trinkets really quick in case you don't already know. All 6 of these trinkets have a certain buff, and whenever all of them are active at the same time, you activate like this crazy Pantheon buff, which superpowers your trinkets for a short duration. Now, in order to maximize your uptime, you want to have the spread of these trinkets set out appropriately. So that's going to mean that your 2 tanks absolutely must have that trinket equipped. It's almost a non-negotiable thing. You're also going to want to have all your healers all using the healer-based trinket. Those 2 pieces are pretty much essential. From there, you have a mix of DPS and ranged and melee and casters that you definitely do want to have them all appropriately wearing their trinkets, with the exception of whoever is extra. So going back to how the behavior of this drop will happen, I don't know, like maybe as your raid is starting to gear up and you're starting to get these random trinkets, it would be cool if you kind of got the Aman'Thul's vision as a sort of freebie. So that way, when you did get the trinket that you actually wanted, then you can swap it out. But I don't know, those are just some initial thoughts of mine. To be honest, while I think this is like a little bump in the cool factor, or like the, really feeling good, cool, we did all the content and now we're getting like this thing to work on and power up a little bit more, it seems a little bloated when it comes to the natural nerfing of stuff. I mean, people are like I said, people are naturally getting a little bit stronger, a little bit better thanks to things like artifact power and random titan forging. Having a guaranteed power up like this is kind of cool. We're actually going out and fetching it, but it seems like a bit much. Like we're almost bound to see instances where you'll see, just like in Hellfire Citadel, you'll see a weird class stacking thing, not exactly for progression, but more for fun. We'll start seeing ridiculous numbers and 30-second mythic fights or something like that. But I mean, as we're approaching the end of this expansion, maybe that's the point. Maybe it is just to let mechanics break after a while, or just kind of let it run down because they're starting to move on to the next best thing. But that's me sharing my thoughts. Share your thoughts and stay breezy.